So Nick Byrne, London School of Economics. Right, this is a short presentation, and it will be great if the links do work, but if they take too long, I'm not going to open all of the links, because in the privacy of your own home, with a glass of wine or non-alcoholic beverage of your choice next to you, you can have hours of fun going deeper and deeper and deeper into the dark net that the links provide here. What I'm trying to do in this 15 minutes is to just sort of try and discuss with you some of the things that have made me really interested over the last few years in trying to see how we portray languages. Because the big thing is, with languages, that you hear them, you speak them, but you can't see them. And if you're trying to do publicity material for your own language centre, we all have, you know, the fallback is, student coming not from your country, looking really interested on a pair of headphones, often showing a document or a leaflet to somebody else and going, oh, this is interesting, language, technology, or an open grass or a park. We've all done this because it's very, very difficult to actually portray what we do as a language, or you do Eiffel Tower, Brandenburg Gate, pictures. And it's quite hard to know how you portray it. The other thing as well is that I realise that when I look at lots of the material we do based on words, less based on images. And what I'm interested in the last few years, that you are getting more and more of these infographics. The idea that you get facts and figures with little drawings, little cartoons, all based up. And I thought it would be quite interesting to see how we can bring our own language centres into the infographic world, because that's something I've still got to do. And also how we as Vulco Group could actually become infographics in our own right. I'll look at that a little bit later. So what I'm saying is this idea that you can visualise so many things, but you can't really do it with languages. And the idea of actually coming up with ideas of how you make it more visual, I think is something quite interesting. One of the most exciting areas of LSE that I've ever done is LSE Cities. I'm actually sharing an office on the floor of this. I just have this glass coffin on my own at the moment because we're moving buildings. And I'm really interested because I'm surrounded by architects, urban planners, people who are very, very visual about explaining what they do. And that's where I really got into the idea of facts and figures. If you Google LSE Cities, and if you look at their website, started in Computer 9, they do great sort of images, and if we've got some time we can look at some of those. But what was really interesting, when I was talking to them, we had this project, it's got urbanlanguages.eu, and you can look at it, looking at the importance of multilingualism in the city. And it's like how important multilingualism is to the economy of the city, to the identity of the city, to the cost of social services and education, and in fact how a city looks like. That's a real problem, because if you look saying, well, how can I make my city look multilingual? I mean, the number of languages spoken in London is probably equivalent to the number of days in the year. Look at any city, look at Frankfurt Oder, look at your own cities. They're all multilingual. And when we try and portray these multilingual cities, we're often forced to quite effective, sometimes still cliches, of street signs in 2 languages, or somebody in exotic dress buying exotic fruit at a market. And we suddenly thought, it's really, really difficult. Well, if you look at this, that would have got you to a map of the world, and then it would take you another thing, map of London, to another thing of the street. And then it would be all the houses in the street. And what this amazing woman, Suzanne Hall, did, she took a street, and it's a street we've got in all of our cities. Those streets that look a bit run down, that have got a high level of immigration, quite recent immigration. And you go past these shops, and you see these shops, and you think, oh, how does anyone buy anything? It's got fruit that doesn't look that best at the front, and it might have it at a meat shop, and then it'll have a little nail file shop, and then it'll have an internet mobile shop, and then it'll have washing powder, washing. And you think, who buys? What is that? And she used to walk by these shops, and then she said, I'm going to find out more. And she got fascinated. And what she found, that these shops were like microorganisms. And she found on a language level that they had all these languages spoken within these shops that sold a variety of things. And in these shops, they were all sublet. And they were sublet to a variety of people from a variety of nations with a variety of languages. And people were using common languages, languages that they knew, every language you could imagine from Middle East, going eastwards, African. And what she found was an economic, basically, climate that matched with languages. And she said some amazing things. There are more languages and a higher degree of language competence spoken among people, these immigrants that have been in England for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, than LSE academics. A higher level of the wealth in that was incredible. And every area of the shop was let out at different rates. So if people didn't have much money and it was the fresh produce, it was quite cheap to rent. The people selling washing powder and things, that had like a middle rent. The people selling mobile phones and mobile phones, the rent was higher than in the West End of London. And the people doing the nails, that was actually a really good starting point for women from Nigeria starting up their own business. And she said on a social level, a language level, an economic level, all of those things, and she actually came up with really interesting ideas of portraying it, using infographics, using maps, and putting it together. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because that actually had an impact. Because we're dealing with, we know how important languages are, but getting people to understand how important languages are, sometimes you need to look outside the language and look at the impact, show how you can visualize it, how it connects with the city, how it connects with the world. And you can actually think, well, could I do that with my own city? Can I work with the department of my university to take a street? If you go on to languages that heard and not seen, you get a map of London, and you click on the area of London, and it gives you examples of the different languages spoken in London, and the different sounds. And it takes like sounds of people talking in the street, and I'm thinking, well, that'd be great. You could actually do a sound map of your own city. I really like this one. The colours aren't coming up so much, but this is a language Twitter feed over London. So these are all, again, different things, there's more colours in there, but they all identify to the different languages spoken on Twitter at London at night. I don't know whether they do this at night rather than the daytime, because it's not happening. Most commonly spoken languages, again, colours aren't coming up quite good, but they've done a sort of map. And I think it's one of these things where it's really great for every city to have that awareness of, you can turn it into a pointilliste, Seurat-like, impressionist sort of painting of your city. And you're thinking, well, that's a really nice sort of images you can come up with if you're doing. Now, what I was being fascinated with is, in the UK, languages are no news. They're only news if it's something negative. Like shock horror, in this school in London, nobody's speaking English. Shock horror, in this school, 25 languages spoken. Shock horror. Of course, what they found out, that in those schools where 25 languages are being spoken, the exam rates are generally higher after 2 years than English-speaking school children. And then, particularly, they've looked at influence because of a lot of criticisms of Polish school children in West London, that the exam rates of the Polish school children are higher, and also that sometimes the exam rates in English are higher as well than English speakers. So it's actually all this sort of thing exploded. But the point is, with newspapers, we're very, very lucky. See, you can depend on the Guardian. Nice centre-left paper. You know, it does it, that's fine. What happened was, The British Academy said to The Guardian, look, every time we try and get good news in the paper, nobody wants to know. So The Guardian, for relatively little money, agreed to run a language story every week. So what they did, they decided to look at languages from a different angle and try and find out how they could connect. So you can see the case for language learning, a language family tree in pictures. The case for language learning, losing my Welsh, what it feels like to forget a language, the human side of the story. The case for language, how to use a language skill to get a job, live Q&A. So that's the sort of thing we know there. I like that one. The case for language learning, learning a language helps me talk back to the voice of depression. Ooh. But anyway, you go on in pictures, what it means. There's a visualization using strong images that no other paper has done before. And although in a sense, it's only available on the web, they very rarely print these stories. There is an idea that a newspaper, a global paper, is making it clear in a country that is not interested in language learning that it is important. You've got good artists trying to visualize things. And so that when you use images, you actually have to think this looks good, it's got some artistic integrity, it's done by good graphic design. And I think it's important to be able to have these things at our disposal. There are other things more interactive than that. The Economist. All of a sudden, they're interested in languages. They didn't used to be. But again, it's really interesting the way that they do it. A whole range of languages, and again, a whole sort of range of graphics. And I think it's really, really important that if people are wanting to show the importance of language, that we can point to good quality magazines, newspapers, to actually help us make our case. I did have a frustration with people in the LSE cities because I was talking to someone who was an urban planner, and I was talking about the importance of languages and how when you talk about multinationalism, international cities, languages are forgotten. And he said, I don't really know what you're talking about. Why are languages important in a city for urban planning? What do you want me to do? Create language ghettos? So the French Quarter, the Farsi Quarter, the German Quarter, and he completely missed the point. And he said, if you're living in a city, you speak the language of the city, and that will be the language of the city and the country. And it was very, very interesting. He saw linguistic diversity as something divisive, when in fact linguistic diversity should be something behind closed doors. You can have a problem with that. But when it turned out to the public face, that you actually just have a monolingual approach to it. And so I just thought it was very, very interesting thinking, you know, we do have an argument, because for us as linguists, we love seeing examples of linguistic diversity. It's not a threat. So what we've got in the UK, we've got the British Academy trying to put forward the case, and as you can see, it gets slightly more desperate over the years. Language matters more, and I suppose it should be more and more, and language matters most, but that became born global. And what I'm involved with the LSE is trying to nail reasons why the country should have a more effective language policy and pick-up rate. Because to be honest, if it doesn't work now, it probably never does. So I'm actually thinking, well, where do we go from here? I think we could make better use of infographics to illustrate our case more effectively. And there are plenty of good language sites. This one here, which is a French site, is very good at pulling together loads of articles, disparate views, all about multilingualism. And it's got some very good little tables as well that you can pull out, showing the importance of this, the effect languages have, putting it very, very clear. Very good little sort of snapshots, little mini movies as well, in a variety of languages. And I find that actually really, really helpful. And again, it's one of these organisations that you can look through, and there's something for everybody in it. But some of the questions that I would leave you is like, how can we better use infographics to help our cause? Which causes would you choose first? What images would you use? And what facts and figures are most important? Now, I was looking around the room here. Now, when we're all together, all 40 of us, if you look at here, what are the images? Well, obviously the facts and figures we could say about the Vulco group. If we just look at this room here, I mean, we wouldn't want to do this, but if we added up all our ages, start off with 99 with me, you add it up, you'd have an infographic, the wisdom of all the ages, 1,000 years of wisdom just in this room. If we added up all the number of students that we teach, now, if I really wanted to push it at LSE, I've got nearly 4,000 students. So you mentioned this yesterday in your thing in Trieste.
The whole number of students.
For your language centre that you taught?
20,000. I mean,
20,000.
Potential audience, potential. Yeah.
Well, God, even more than that. Okay, so if you just added up the thousands of students that we do, what a great infographic that would be. We reflect the views of 20,000 students. I employ 66 people. So if we added up the total of that, all the people we do, the number of cities we represent, the number of the population in our cities, the geographical spread that we can do, those sort of things made clear would really help. And what I'm going to try and do when I get back to the UK is come up with some idea with the design unit at LSE to actually say the Vulco group. When Thomas showed the map of where that is an infographic, but actually to really, and then you can look at these areas. And I think that if we worked on these ideas, and I love this actually, graphic design is a universal language here, I think we can come up with a one-page graphic that we can use, because I think that what we'll have after these talks and with the web things that we're going to put on are some really interesting things that people can look at in depth. What we need, perhaps, are some really interesting facts and figures packaged together very easily that will sell it. Thank you very much.